and one that allows you to immediately put into implementation the content that you receive. So again, every time we connect with you all, we want you all to be able to immediately be able to take action on the content that you receive. So tonight is jam-packed, and I'm excited to have Maresa on board. So again, we are We the Plug, a little bit about who we are as an organization. Obviously, we're here to help Pan-African and Latinx as our primary focus. We're open to any underrepresented community, but our priority is with that community. We're excited to have some initiatives that we're rolling out. You all have already heard about um, the platform, so I'll talk about that in a moment. Just to remind you all about community norms. Again, we're in a safe space. Feel free to openly talk about any issues that are pertinent to the Pan-African community, the Latinx community, uh, and any other underrepresented community. But again, our primary focus tonight will be on, and every other night, and we proudly say it, is focused on us as a community because, again, we're often left behind in discussions like this. So we're excited to be pushing that narrative. So it's a safe space. Make sure that you, when you do share, give time for others to share as well. We might have an intimate group tonight, so we may have a little bit more time to ask questions, which is always nice to have as well. Here's the team. You guys know us very well. Um, Luis and I have been connected for about 2 years now. This is the beginning of how we all started. Many of you all know that story, and actually, two of you all who are on the call tonight are in this photo tonight. So you really have been in the trenches with us. This is just an image of Luis's first experience as director of Startup Grind, which is a organized community that is worldwide. It is powered by Google, and this is Startup Grind. This is an event that was put together with just his passion and thought of let me put folks that look like me in a room because we really didn't feel like they were being tended to. And the result was folks rolling up their sleeves saying, how can we help each other? And that catapulted us into the space that we're in right now. So we're excited to be here. We're excited to be able to share this platform with all of you all who are doing phenomenal things in the community. Our initiative, obviously you all have heard it. Just a quick update on where we are with things. We're still partnering and growing our 1,000 um, people of color launch, where we're connecting with tech and innovative companies. There's going to be more coming out. As long as you're on the platform, you're going to get first dibs on what we're doing in that space. There's a lot of content that's going to be rolling out jam-packed from May on. And so just stay tuned. Again, if there is a particular organization or a particular topic that you all are interested in, do reach out to us and let us know, and we'll do our best to get that presented to you. Next steps for us, again, we have that platform that we talked about is the membership platform. It allows you all to have interface connection with one another. Obviously, we're in this stay-at-home situation, so we can't be out in the community face-to-face with one another, but what we can do is have that close connection on this platform where we're reaching out to individuals that look like us, sound like us, and doing some really amazing things worldwide to be able to expand our reach as well as scale our company. So again, if you're not on the platform, the link is in the chat box. Do go in there once we're done with tonight, click the link and sign up and learn more about the amazing things that we're doing on the platform. a little bit more about the platform, and then where you can reach us, which again, most of you all already know how to do that. So tonight, I'm excited because Maresa Talbert, just a little bit about how WTP connected with her. So we actually connected at Startup Grind, or excuse me, Startup Week in 2018. I was first and foremost, I was brand new to this space. I knew no one except for Luis Martinez, and he and I was still getting to know each other. And I was jotting off up the stairs to take a bathroom break, full disclosure. And I saw this beautiful brown skinned woman sitting at a table. And I thought, wow, there's not many of us around here that look like me. And well, who is she and what does she do? So I ran back down the stairs and struck up a conversation. Found out she's a lawyer. Her focus was in IP, and she just started to expand about what she was doing and how she was launching her own business, or I think you were in the early stages of planning that out. And we just agreed to stay in contact. And from there, you know, she was just true to her word. Every time I would reach out to her and just ping her and say, this is what we're working on, you know, she'd say, oh, that's great, keep going. Okay, well, whatever you need me to do to help. One of the things I really appreciate about Maresa is that she is putting action to who she is as a representative in the legal industry, but also representing women and women of color. And so I'm excited about having her on the platform tonight and sharing her expertise about the topic that we're going to focus on that's really important for us. And so before I hand it over to her, I just realized, forgive me, Louise, I have not acknowledged my partner in crime, Luis Martinez. He is behind the scenes and will be in the chat box connecting. Luis, you want to say hello? No, he don't want to say hello. All right, but he's in the background, so he's there. He's close by. But he's my road dog. He's my right hand. And I couldn't do this without him. So thank you, Louise, for being who you are. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Miss Maresa, who will be guiding tonight's webinar. Maresa, if you want to unmute yourself.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Do a thumbs up if you can.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, first off, I would just say thank you to Christiana and Louise for inviting me to come share information with you today. You know, as she said, I'm an attorney, and I practice in business and nonprofit and intellectual property law. And I really enjoy being able to educate everyone, but being able specifically to educate us as people of color who don't really understand this space as much or are not as present in this space as we should be. We don't have the resources or don't know enough to seek out the resources to really understand just the value behind business law and intellectual property law. So thank you, Christiana and Louise, again for inviting me to come and speak, because this is something that I really enjoy and that I'm passionate about. With that being said, I want to be respectful of your time, so I will get straight to the point. Let me see if I can share my screen with you all.
Not allowing you?
Oh, it's saying you have to let go. I can't start it while you're sharing.
Well, there you have it, because
Okay.
I did think I had stopped that.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so just a little bit about me. I am a California licensed attorney. Like I said, I practice business, nonprofit, and intellectual property law, and I am the owner and operator of Talbert Law Office, based in San Diego. So again, what intellectual property looks like. So basically what that entails is preventative law, which is based around contracts, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight, preventing foreseeable issues in the future. So contracts are very important. Also copyrights, protecting your works of art, your works of ownership, your creative works, such as pictures and photos and storylines and manuals and procedures. There's so many things that you have available to you, so many assets that you can protect. And these are kind of the areas that I have the expertise in. So copyrights, trademarks, which is basically brands and logos, and then trade secrets, which are those things that are kept secret, such as the KFC recipe, the Coca-Cola recipe, the Google algorithms, or even the New York Best Time Sellers list. So those are some of the things that are protected and are generating billions with the B, billions of dollars for the companies who own these assets. So just a quick disclaimer, this is not legal advice, this is more informational advice. So just letting you know that this is like not a consultation. So let's just jump right into it. So there's a few we're talking about funding opportunities for businesses around this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a few programs, federal and state programs. The city of San Diego has now run out of funds. So at this point, they are not, their programs are now closed, but we'll talk about the federal and state programs that are responding and helping businesses in response to this pandemic and what's going on right now. So first, there's the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. So the PPP is a loan that's designed to provide an incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on payroll. Prior to this week, the funding for PPP was exhausted. However, just last week, starting the beginning of this week, Congress approved an additional $484 billion towards a stimulus package around these programs, and $310 billion of that was allocated toward replenishing this program. So to date, approximately 20% of all PPP applications have been approved. So let's discuss a little bit who can apply. So as you see here on the screen, the eligibility of who can apply is determined by the Small Business Administration, the SBA. The SBA basically determines every part of this program. So basically, who can apply? Any small business that meets the SBA business size standards, which I'll discuss a little bit further. Any business, 501c3 nonprofit, veterans, tribal organization that is greater than 500, has greater than 500 employees, or again meets the SBA site standard, size standard. And then any business with a code of a 72 with more than one physical location and employs less than 500 per location. So generally like franchises, like Chick-fil-A maybe, or the small business franchises. And then also sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed persons can also apply. So the SBI size standard determines whether or not your business qualifies as a small business. We have seen that there's been businesses such as Steak Shack, Ruth's Chris, the Lakers, that have been receiving these funds, and going back to what should be the standard, the SBA is the determination of what is considered a small business. So as the borrower, you will need to know, and we'll talk about this later, but you'll need to know what that qualification is for the industry that your business falls under. So how to apply? So there's three general steps. You have to create an account on the SBA Connect website. Then you have to request the authorization from a lender. And then you have to proceed with submitting the loan request. As I said, this loan resumed on Monday and is expected to be available through June 30th of 2020. So talking a little bit more about the SBA size standards. So again, the SBA determines whether or not your business qualifies as small, and it is categorized based on industries. So I listed out all the industries that the SBA categorizes, and in the materials, there is a link to the document that goes through every industry and the requirements based on what they consider small. So whether it's the amount of money you make or the amount of employees that you have under your business for a certain industry is basically the determination of your size standard. So there are these affiliation rules that also are considered in determining whether you're eligible for this program. There are 4 tests used by the SBA to determine if the person who is applying for the loan is sufficiently affiliated with the business. So what does that really mean? Basically, it means that whoever's the applicant, they need to have a certain level of control within the business that they're requesting money for. So these are the 4 tests. Ownership. So are you the business owner, or do you control at least 50% of the voting equity? If so, then you would be considered sufficiently affiliated with the business to be able to ask the federal government to give you money in its regard. You may also be considered an affiliate based on stock ownership, based on overlapping management of the business, and even the identity of interest. So for example, if you have close relatives that operate a business in the same or similar industry and in the same geographic area, you meet the identity of interest. So the 2 of you could be deemed sufficiently affiliated to be able to request money. So there are some waivers and there are some exemptions. So as you see, there are waivers for businesses with more than 500 employees. Again, we mentioned franchises and businesses that already receive assistance under a certain provision of the Small Business Investment Act. And then faith-based and religious organizations are completely exempt from this affiliation rule, mainly because they have more so boards of directors and different levels of management, so they're completely exempt. So, talking about the loan forgiveness for this program. So under this program, the SBA will forgive the loan that you take out for the business if all the employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks and the money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, or utilities. So that's 3 specific criteria already. All employees for at least 8 weeks, and you can use the money on these categories of expenses: payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, utilities. So the 8-week period would begin on the date that the lender makes the first disbursement after you were approved for the loan. Once the loan is approved, that first disbursement has to be made within 10 calendar days from the date of your approval. So once you get that first payment, your 8-week clock starts. Now, like I said, this loan forgiveness criteria is very specific. In particular, if you're a business owner and you had employees and you fired them at the start of the pandemic, you have to quickly rehire them. In addition to that, you have to maintain their salary levels. If the number of your full-time employees decreases, or if their salaries and wages decrease, then the amount of the loan that is forgiven will be reduced. So you will not get the full amount of that loan forgiveness. In addition to that, at least 75% of the forgiven amount must be used on payroll. So if you plan to have this entire loan forgiven, you need to use all of it on payroll. You get $100,000 for your business, you have to use at least 75% of that on payroll. So that is a very specific criteria to meet in order to have this forgiven. That is not to say that you cannot get the loan and spend it on whatever you need to spend it on, but you'll have to pay it back. And then it must be paid back within 2 years, and it is capped at an interest rate of 1%. So if you want the loan forgiven, you need to follow the rules. If you spend it on whatever you need in the moment and it doesn't quite fit squarely into these conditions, then be prepared to pay the loan back within 2 years. So with that being said, the loan payments are deferred for 6 months, and there's no collateral, no personal guarantees required, and no business fees that are associated with the loan. So here I have a link to the application form, and you'll have that in the materials as well. And also there is a link to a loan calculator. So if you are wanting to pursue this loan, there is a loan calculator in the materials that you can use to kind of play around with numbers and see what that payback would look like for you. So the next federal program that's available for business owners and individuals is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So this loan, currently, the SBA says that they're not accepting new applications right now. But like I said, Congress just appropriated another $60 billion towards this program this week. So I would suggest, if you're interested in this program, continue to monitor the updates to see when they will start to put information back out for applying for this loan. So this particular loan provides economic relief to businesses that are just currently experiencing a temporary loss in revenue. It's pretty straightforward. So it's for small business owners with fewer than 500 employees, and it's eligible for all states, DC, territories, and they'll award up to $10,000 for economic relief. This loan is also one that doesn't have to be repaid. There's no particular criteria. It is just a non-repayment. And as you see, currently, the current report is there's been approximately almost 27,000 loans approved and over $5 trillion given out in support of this program. So the next federal program that's available is the SBA Express Bridge Loan. So this loan is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a loan to hold you over. It's provided to businesses that already have a business relationship with an SBA Express lender, and it is guaranteeing up to $25,000. The good part, the advantage with this loan is that you can, as a business, you can apply for this loan even while you're waiting for the previous loan, for that emergency loan disbursement to come through. So this, again, business owners can apply for this throughout all US states, DC, and all US territories. The main criteria is that you have to have an existing banking relationship with the SBA on or before March 13th. And March 13th is the date that the president declared an emergency declaration. So at that date, on or before that date, you had to have a relationship with an SBA lender. This loan will be available for the next year. So loans will be approved up through March 13th of 2021. So really quickly, I will run through these terms. So this loan is pretty interesting. So you must demonstrate a need for desired credit. So as a business, basically what that means is, as a business, you can't have the ability to obtain funds from a non-federal source. So you have to meet the credit elsewhere requirement. Like, you cannot get credit elsewhere. So you have to come to the SBA to get certified for this loan. Then, even after that, your lender must certify this information in your application. And if they don't, if they fail to address your need for the credit that you're applying for, you're going to get denied. And it's not going to be on the lender, it's going to be on you as the applicant. So you have to make sure, if you're applying for this loan, you have to make sure that the lender identifies and addresses your need for the desired credit. You also must be an operating business as of the date of the applicable disaster in a disaster area. So with this being said, because COVID-19 was a pandemic globally, the disaster area is a global area. But let's just say, for example, in a different case, there was a flood, and you're 20 miles outside of that. You may not be in the disaster area. So you have to make sure that based on the application and the requirements, that you are listed in the disaster area. Like I said, the date of applicable disaster for this specific case is March 13th. So you had to be operating on or before March 13th. You have to show that you were adversely impacted by this COVID-19 emergency. So you can't just be doing bad in the moment. You have to show that you were impacted specifically by this emergency. You must not have already received any express bridge loans. Here, the maximum loan term is 7 years. And then you have to have a minimum acceptable business score of 130. So this small business scoring service is a FICO small business score that is calculated based on a combination of your consumer credit bureau data, your business bureau data, your financials, and your application data. So it is different from just your credit score. It is a score that is specific to the SBA, and they're going to take all of that information to determine what your SBSS score is. And you have to have a minimum score of 130. If you don't receive that minimum score, you are considered ineligible for this program. Keep in mind also that your personal credit score will be considered separately from this score. So even if you meet the minimum of the 130, you still could be denied based on your personal credit score. So they consider those separately, even though your personal credit score is used in coming up with this SBSS score. Does that make sense? Questions on that? Anybody? Okay. And then here below are the required forms for applying for this loan. And there are links to each of those forms in the materials.
Maresa, I had one question for you. So going back to the scoring sheet, is this something that if you are denied that you're, and you may not be able to answer this, but do you know if SBA is working with these small business owners when they are denied to help connect them with other funding, or maybe adjust so that they do receive some type of support, financial support?
So the guidance right now is it's up to the lender. That is the guidance that the SBA has put out. So they say if a borrower is denied, lenders, you should work with them to help them get their application materials ready or to help them understand why they got denied. With that being said, it's not required. In addition to that, specifically for the PPP loan, there was a judge who ruled that borrowers could not sue against being denied for that loan specifically because they don't have a right to it. So it's really up to the lender at this point until further guidance comes out to say, hey, you need to let the borrower know why they were denied. You need to give them specific information on what was the reason. There's no guidance for that. And with lenders being inundated right now with so many applications, it's unlikely that they're going to take the time to really do that if they're not required. But if you have already applied for one of these programs and been denied, I would suggest trying to ask, but it's not required. So the last federal program is the SBA debt relief. So this program is really nothing that has to be done. You don't have to apply for it. It is automatic. So the SBA will pay the principal, interest, and fees of any current loans that businesses may have with them up to 6 months. And so no interest accrues on the loan. And basically, if you had automatic payments already in place, your automatic payments will still continue. You have to manually go in and cancel your automatic payments to take advantage of those 6 months. So that's basically what's going on with the debt relief program. So now we can talk about what California is doing specifically as a state. So California has the Disaster Relief Loan Guarantee Program. This program provides up to $50,000 for individuals and businesses who didn't qualify for any of the federal programs. It's for small businesses that, again, are negatively impacted by the pandemic and has fewer than 750 employees. There is a list right there, participating lenders, and the terms are down below: guaranteed up to 7 years, guarantees up to 95% of the loan. The loan interest rates are negotiated between the lender or borrower, which is a little scary. And then qualifications are based on lender criteria, which is very subjective. So this loan guarantee is kind of iffy, but it is available. So if you don't qualify for any of the federal programs, this is an option, albeit a little wonky.
For sure.
The last state program that is just available for businesses is this CalCAP program. So this CalCAP program is a loan loss reserve. It's specific to certain industries. So essentially what it does is it provides coverage to the lender as a result of loan defaults. So it gives the lender some comfortability to underwrite a small business loan. And they're underwriting very large amounts. So The individual borrowers are limited to a maximum of $2.5 million over a 3-year term. Lenders and borrowers each contribute between 2 and 3.5% of the total amount to a loan loss reserve account. And so that account builds up and then is used to cover any loan default. And then the eligible uses of the loan proceeds are listed there below. So land acquisition, construction, startup costs, equipment, working capital. So these are the two state programs that are available. So let's quickly discuss, let's say you don't need funding. You just need information on what to do in this time as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. You want to understand what do I do next? So here's a list of some of the risks that business owners and entrepreneurs that I've been working with have identified. So of course, with people not being able to go out, we have a stronger online presence, therefore increasing online counterfeiting of goods and services, and people having catfish clones and social media clones and all kinds of things, because people just kind of have time on their hands. So we see the increase in online counterfeiting. With that being said, with people working from home, there are also the ripe opportunities to remove sensitive information from company systems and data resources that normally, because you were at work, you didn't bring that stuff home. And now that people are working from home, it's open to a much more broad group of people. Of course, a lot of times we don't have the same cybersecurity while working from a home network as we do at work. And then, you know, with having this online presence, it's easier to counterfeit, more difficult to enforce intellectual property rights, more than ever. In addition to that, there's the $1 million question around contracts as to whether a contract can be enforced or not. So, you know, I mentioned contracts earlier in the beginning as a preventative measure, and it really can be a preventative measure. So I know there are a lot of people who have questions in regards to how contracts should be treated during this time. There's a lot of people who will be held liable for non-performance because they just believed that the contract that they're a party to, couldn't be enforced during this time, which is not necessarily the case. It definitely depends on the language of the contract. But there are two specific provisions that I want to just mention and emphasize. And with that being said, I have to put a plug in for seeking out legal counsel if you're entering into a contract, because pulling a templated contract off of like LegalZoom or off the internet, it is not going to be specific to what the parties really want. It's not going to be specific to foreseeable events that could be mitigated by adding certain language into the contract, which is done by a licensed professional and a good attorney. So don't be afraid to seek legal counsel if you're entering into a contract. If you need a contract reviewed, all they can say is yes or no to either review it or not, but don't be afraid to seek out that guidance because it really could save you money in the long run. So back to the two provisions. There's two provisions, and I kind of wrote this out more in a detailed version in the materials that you all will have access to. But the first provision is what's called a force majeure clause. So basically, that in French, it's a French term that that basically means like act of God, emergency. But it's a force majeure clause. And what it does is that it relieves the parties from performing their contractual obligations when certain circumstances happen that are beyond their control, such as a flood or a tornado or a pandemic, and everybody's ordered to stay at home. So there are very specific terms that are placed in a contract for situations like this, and would account for both parties being relieved from their duties so that neither party breaches the contract. There's also another provision that's called the impossibility, impracticability, or frustration of purpose provision. And what that, it's kind of has the same purpose, different circumstances, but the same purpose as the force majeure clause. So the force majeure clause is basically for like natural disaster. But the frustration of purpose clause is for something like, for example, if I contracted a painter to paint my house on Friday and my house burned down Thursday morning, and the painter can no longer paint my house, the purpose of the contract has now been frustrated, and it makes it impossible for my house to be painted because there is no house. So the painter is relieved from the obligation of painting my house because the purpose of the contract, which was to paint the house, has now been frustrated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So I had a question because I had a client reach out to me. They're a content creator, and one of the things that they were concerned about is that they were still required to honor their contract, which is promoting products, but the state that we were in didn't really seem like a good fit, but they went ahead and did it and got a lot of backlash and then stopped doing it. And they wanted to know, were they in breach of contract by doing that? And basically I just said, well, you need to talk to a lawyer about that. I would think so. I don't know. But I think you answered that, which is to go speak to a lawyer and have them look over the contract to see.
Yeah.
Now, what if that the one about the act of God or the frustration clause, what if that was not in the contract? Because
So
again, a lot of these companies, sorry to cut you off, but one
no,
more
go ahead.
thing, a lot of these content creators get into contracts with companies that they themselves are like a startup. So they don't really have all of the right language in these contracts. And it's just literally something that they downloaded off the internet and they
Yeah.
signed it. And so can you speak a little bit to that?
So that is the problem. So yes, if it's not in there, then the parties are still liable and they can be held in breach of the contract, because the court does not, contracts are very very much between the parties. The courts do not care how lopsided the contract is, because they say we leave that to the two of you to figure out and negotiate before I have to. So the court does not want to determine what is legal or not legal in a contract, or what is fair or not fair in a contract. They don't determine the terms of the contract. They determine how the contract is executed. So if those clauses are not there that are excusing you from that performance, you're stuck. You're stuck and you're held liable. And the other party who is now mad at you, or because they're like, you breached the contract, they have rights against you. They have the right to hold you liable. And whatever the penalties are in the contract, you could be, on the hook for, unless you can, negotiate new terms within the two parties, or however many parties to the contract. But that is a major problem, is that a lot of these templated contracts, they're standard, they contain boilerplate provisions, and they don't account for very specific circumstances based on industry, based on culture, based on just certain norms and mores that a human being would be able to understand and foresee and speak to, and add language in that contract to account for that. Any other questions? Okay, so lastly, with that being said, I will just talk about some of the ways to mitigate some of these risks, and I'll just wrap it up with a nice bow. There's a lot of ways listed here, but all of this is culminated in what is called a business continuity plan. So with the business continuity plan, it's basically a plan that helps a business to prepare for disruption. When your business is disrupted, it costs you money, you lose revenue, you incur additional expenses, and you lose profit. So this plan basically is an instruction plan that ensures that personnel and assets are protected and able to quickly come back and recover from a natural disaster and get back to functioning. So in your materials, I provided basically a continuity plan checklist to kind of help you create a system that helps to determine how you're going to frame your prevention and recovery for certain times like this. That plan includes everything listed on here: educating your customers, how to communicate, making sure that you have communications available to your customers if you're selling a good or a service or a product. Letting them know, hey, we are still working. I know when this all started, I was getting emails from spas, and I was getting emails from all types of service providers saying, hey, we're still open. We are taking precautions. You can still come in and book an appointment. We have gotten this disinfectant, this and this and this, or that and that and that. And we are taking all precautions to make sure that you are safe and healthy and all that. That is part of educating your customers, because a lot of people were like, oh, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, before the stay-at-home order was put into place. And those businesses were reaching out to say, no, we're still operating. You can come in. We have taken all of your concerns into account, and we are disinfecting. We are monitoring. We are letting one person in at a time. They were doing that. So part of your business continuity plan is educating your customers. You want to be monitoring. You want to be monitoring to see if people are counterfeiting your intellectual property, to see if people are trying to use your trademark or whatever else you might be putting out there. You want to be able to you want to have a plan in place to set clear expectations when your employees start moving from the office to remote working, and that they know that this is acceptable and this is not acceptable, that they know that you have work from home policies that are available and that they can understand, and that they know what is expected of them. You want to have a plan in place to make sure that all your documents are marked, that people who need to know have the need to know, and that everybody is not having access to your sensitive documents or your proprietary information. So these are some of the things that you account for in your business continuity plan. And it is a fluid document. It is a document that is tailored around the needs of you and your business and your customers. And so that is one of the easiest ways to be able to mitigate and, well, prepare for and mitigate during uncertain times such as this. And with that being said, I will wrap it up. If there's any questions, I will take questions, but thank you so much for your attention. And I'll answer any questions anyone may have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marissa. This was really helpful in kind of laying out what funding is still available out there and how to kind of deep dive in looking at what to best apply for and then what we are to expect from it. So I am going to open it up to anyone who wants to unmute themselves and ask a question to Marissa. It can be something that she spoke about tonight, or it can be something related specifically to your business and you want to ask. So again, if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. Wow, we have a lawyer on the line and no one has a question? Gosh, I stay having questions. Marissa will tell you, I'll be on the phone with her and I'm like, Marissa, what about this? What about this? I ask her all kinds of questions. So I have a couple of questions. So going back to funding that's out there, again, you know, we've had founders come to us. Some of them have a tech company, multiple companies that one company may have one member, one employee, the other company may just be themselves. But the one employee that they do have is a family member. So my question to you is, the funding that's out there, does it matter who the employed person is? Or will they be doing any type of check-in on, because, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, shoot, if I'm a small business owner, I have all kinds of family members that are helping me behind the scenes. But I'm not necessarily paying them, in the traditional way. It's kind of like under the table. And oftentimes we find that folks are, setting up Cash App accounts or PayPal, but not, but it's marked under personal. I think it's personal. You could do personal or business and they'll mark personal so they can avoid being tracked. So can they still apply, and what would that look like for them?
So if you have pseudo employees, you are better off applying as an individual, because your employee, in order to be considered under an employee status, there's a criteria under just employment law of who is considered an employee. So there's certain things like, do they set their own hours? Do they get to work from their own station, whether that's from home, or do they have to come into a space that you designate for them? So there's a standard criteria to determine who is an employee and who is not. With that being said as well, so one, they need to fit under that criteria to be considered an employee. Also, they also need to be accounted for as far as your payroll, like your payroll taxes and paying into the EDD. And so all of that needs to be squared away as far as accounting for an employee. If you don't have that formal information documented, then more than likely they're not going to be considered an employee. And to apply and trying to like claim them as an employee will probably frustrate your application process.
Okay, good to know. And then my other question was about the SBA bridge loan that you had spoke about. And so you had mentioned before that you can apply for multiple loans at one time and not, be it won't work against you. You won't be liable of like fraud or anything like that. Is there a set amount? Do you have the ability to apply for the same amount of funding? And because one of the things I found early on when I was helping clients apply for funding, the funder would, how should I say this? The funding source that we were applying for would always ask, have you applied for other funding and with who? They wouldn't ask for how much, but they would ask that question. And we wasn't sure, was it because we could not apply? It would lower our ability. So if you could speak a little bit to that, if they do ask that question in your experience, what does that mean?
So I would say it depends on the loan or the program that you're applying for. So with the Express Bridge loan, that is it is specifically, they have specifically permitted for that loan to be applied for while applying for the economic injury disaster loan. However, I have not seen the case with the PPP loan that if you apply for that and another loan that's deemed as acceptable. The other part of that is it could be where I talked about what was the other loan? What was the other loan that I mentioned? One of the other loans that I talked about, like that loan, you had to show a need. So you had to show that you couldn't get a loan elsewhere. Right. So in that situation, when you're applying for
the emergency one, I think it was.
Yeah. So with that loan, you have to show that you couldn't get a loan somewhere else. So that is the reason why you're applying with the federal SBA. So it depends. It's going to depend on the criteria of the program. So if there's a provision like that where you have to show that you couldn't get credit elsewhere, then yeah, I've applied for 5 other loans and I couldn't get them. But with the PPP, it might not be as prudent to say I've applied for 5 other loans and I couldn't get them.
Okay. All right. And Stephanie has a question. Stephanie, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Let me look and see what I wrote. I guess my question is, first, hi to Maresa and everyone. What advice do you have for small business owners who may be discouraged when they see like entities such as, like you mentioned before, the Lakers? As a Lakers fan, I'm kind of embarrassed about that. The Lakers and like Shake Shack getting what are supposed to be small business awards. I guess under certain specifications they do qualify. But what if you're like what I would say like a true small business and you see that and you just get discouraged? Like, what advice do you have?
So I would say this is a multi-answer. So one part of that is you got to suck it up. You got to get what you need and not be worried about what anyone else is getting.
Right.
But the other part of that is what those other businesses or other entities are receiving may not be from the funding that you're applying for. Okay. So it may be that they're getting money because they were part of one of the industries that got a stimulus package, specifically like the airline industry. That doesn't mean that they applied under the PPP program and got money that you are applying for as a small business. So there's these different pockets of money. And although all of it is discouraging to see, like the Lakers or even the airlines, it's like, why do you need $1 billion? Like, you don't. But you just have to know that there's a lot of underlying things. It all looks crooked, and most of the time it is. But there are different pots of money, and that's just part of the process. And you know, even though you're discouraged, you still have to continue to fight for what you feel like you are entitled to, which these programs are for small business owners. So as a small business, I can't be worried about what the Lakers got. I got to worry about getting my application right so that there's nothing wrong with when I apply, that they can't come back and say, I don't have something right that was in my control to be able to receive the money that I need.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, friends. It's Brittany.
Hi, Brittany.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hi, Brittany.
You know Brittany.
Hey, Queens. So, and forgive me for my lateness and if you've already spoken about this, but so would this be a good time to start a business? Because that's really the stage that I'm in, and doing a lot of research at this point. But that's one thing that is really at the front, center, and back of my mind is if it even makes sense for us to begin a business at this point.
So I think that it's not necessarily not a good time to start a business. It depends on what your business is. It depends on who your audience is. It depends on what you are offering, your service, your good. Right now, people who are starting businesses making masks are winning. If you was trying to start a massage therapy course, that might not be so great because nobody's out there getting massages. So it depends on your industry, I think. And it also depends on what level of startup costs that you have. I mean, you know, some businesses, you can start up, you can bootstrap it sitting at home on a laptop, and all you need is your laptop, and you may already have that. So I think that's part of it, because as of right now, I wouldn't say people should be starting businesses that have high startup costs, just because times are uncertain. With that also being said, I would not suggest that somebody start a business in hopes to get funding from it, because of course you're going to have to show operation between previous to now. So there are some people who might think that they can start a business, or some people who started businesses within like the last month or so who thought that they could be eligible for some of these programs. And it's like, well, you don't have anything to show for your business, so no, you're not eligible. So in that regard, I would say that's not a good idea. But just to start a business, I think, yeah, go for it if it makes sense.
I just want to add to the conversation, and thank you, Maresa, again for all the information. For those who don't know, this is Luis, but I think it's imperative to know that if you want to start a business now, if you were to, the first question I would ask is, what does the market need at this point, right? And it may not necessarily be your passion, but what the market needs. And so once you find out what the market needs within your strengths, I think that's important to put in context, because people can go after things that are of need within the market, but it's not within their concept of their strengths. So look for something that is of value and of need within the market that that you can do within the strengths and your abilities, and you will be successful. Now, success is kind of I guess subjective, right? Because it can be, I have 3 customers or I have 300. So try to find out through customer discovery what is it that the market needs. And if you do have a particular business that you're trying to start, you have to ask yourself these questions. What is your customer profile? Meaning, what does your customer actually look like? And then once you identify what your customer profile is, then you can do customer discovery, which is asking questions around that particular field in which you're trying to get into. So there's a lot that goes into it before you even decide, you're going to actually start something. Meaning like you're going to put down capital or minimal capital to actually start. So there is a process to even to go through before you even actually put $1 down or even say, okay, I'm going to do this. So
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Two more questions I have for you, and then I'll be done for tonight. But so my first question is going back to your IP. Early on in the presentation, you were talking about IP and protecting it, and you were given examples. And I know a lot of times people, and as well as myself, would confuse copyright with trademark. And I know someone even as popular as LeBron James was trying to trademark Taco Tuesday and couldn't, and they were like, no, that already exists. And Cardi B was trying. So when someone has an idea that they want to put out, uh, and it's written content, how do they? What would you like? I don't know, a couple of steps of what they should do to protect themselves in the beginning, or where they should first start and spend the most of their money or time.
So, loaded question. But if you are starting off with some sort of idea, so let me just break down first the differences between like the copyright and the trademarks, because that's generally what most people get mixed up. And I'll bring in patents a little bit, but most people don't. Most people know that patents are kind of different. So a copyright it protects a work of authorship. So you wrote a play script or a movie script, you wrote a poem, you took a photo on your camera, you wrote lyrics to a song, or you wrote a book, or you played a melody, you choreographed a dance. Those are things that are protected under a copyright. And all a copyright does is protect something that once it is in a tangible medium, once it's from idea in my head to a tangible medium, whatever that medium is, it is now protected from being copied in the exact same format and the exact same way that you did it. So it gets a lot more technical than that, but that's the simple version of it. With a copyright, you own rights to it as soon as it is placed in that tangible medium. So you, as soon as you put pen to paper, as soon as you move your arm, as soon as there is the tangible element to it, the owner automatically assumes rights. They assume common law copyright. Common law copyright is just what it sounds like. It's just common law copyright. So everybody has a copyright to something. You've authored something that has been placed from the idea form to something tangible, and you own the rights to it. That doesn't necessarily protect you, though. It just says, I own the rights to this. This is my photo. This is my dance choreography. This is my movie script. Once you register that copyright, federally register it, then at that point, then you can preclude other people from infringing on what you just did. And it gives you the right to sue in federal court over it, and it gives you the right to stop others from using it. So that's copyright. Trademarks are slogans, sounds, colors, packaging, branding, names, symbols, that's trademarks. You cannot copyright a logo. You can copyright an image. You can't copyright a logo. You have to trademark a logo. So like I said, it gets very technical in determining those differences, but a trademark is some type of branding, and you have to be using the trademark in order to claim trademark rights for it. So you can't be like sitting on something and be like, oh, I don't want to share this with anybody because I don't want anybody to steal it, but you want trademark rights to it. It doesn't work like that. You have to be using something for it to be trademarked.
It has to be active.
It has to be active.
Oh, okay.
Now with trademarks, someone else's trademark can preclude you, whether it's registered or not. It depends. It depends. So there are also common law trademarks. So you say like Taco Tuesdays. Nobody's actually registered Taco Tuesdays, but it is so widely known that nobody's going to be able to claim Taco Tuesday. So trademarks has to be, there's a sliding scale of what is considered a strong trademark or not. So you can't claim words like white, black, red, US. There's certain things that you just can't protect because everybody has the right to use it.
Question on that though. Apple, like we have been eating apples, like an apple, but Apple was able to trademark that. And the symbol of an apple.
It was distinctive. So when you think of Apple, you think of fruit. You don't think of technology.
Oh, so if you shift how the word or the slogan, whatever is being used, then
yes.
You can. Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
So now it comes down to the point of originality, right? Correct?
Yes, that's what it comes down to. So like Xerox is made up word. Xerox is a stronger trademark than Burger King because Burger King is suggesting I'm the king of burgers, whereas Xerox is completely just made up and like, what the heck? What is a Xerox? You have to educate the consumer on what Xerox is. Burger King is suggesting I'm the king of burgers. So like I said, there's a sliding scale on the strength of trademarks. And when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to trademark this, I go through, that's part of what we go through as trademark attorneys in determining this is not very strong. This is likely that, USPTO is going to kick this back and say, this is descriptive. This is, not strong enough, or this is this or whatever. So that is part of the job of a trademark attorney, is to determine, one, the strength of the trademark, to do, clearance searches to make sure that it's not already being used or something similar to it where you're going to get denied registration. So all that is all encompassing in trademarks, and both sets of those intellectual property protections, they get very technical and very down in the weeds and very legal. But those are the main two differences. A copyright is a work of authorship. A trademark is something that's short, quick, and to the point. It's mostly branding. And a trademark, this is the key. People think they can just trademark anything. A trademark is to show a source, is to identify a source. So that is the biggest difference with trademarks. So I know that this Nike shirt is a Nike shirt from an Adidas shirt because of the brand. And so I know that I have bought many Nike shirts before, and I really liked the way they fit. I really liked the way they feel. Nike has developed goodwill with me. So now when I go to the store and I'm looking for a t-shirt, I'm looking for a Nike t-shirt because I know what I'm going to get. So Nike, the trademark, the check mark is a source identifier of who the shirt is coming from.
Do I have to have that established before I apply for a trademark though? Does that?
So you have to have that potential established. So if you come to me with a trademark, I have to look at it and be like, how are you going to use this trademark? What are you planning to do? Because if you're planning to say Taco Tuesdays, I don't know who's the source of Taco Tuesdays. What does that mean?
Okay.
So, but if you come to me and say, so here's a good example. T-shirts again. You know, you can have Pepsi on a T-shirt, right? Mm-hmm. Pepsi has a trademark. Its logo is trademarked. But Pepsi on a T-shirt, I'm not thinking that Pepsi made the T-shirt. I'm thinking you have a picture of the Pepsi logo on your T-shirt. But I don't think that Pepsi is the source or the brand of the T-shirt. I don't know who the brand might be. Fruit of the Loom. It might be a Hanes T-shirt. But my automatically the consumer, which is you who buy products, is not going to assume that when my shirt says Pepsi, that Pepsi is the source.
Interesting.
So
wow.
That is really what a trademark is. It is to help the consumers identify the source of products so that a brand can build goodwill and saying, when you see my mark, you know what you're going to get. When you go stay at a DoubleTree hotel, you know what you're going to get versus staying at a Motel 6. You have a certain experience in mind because I've built up this brand.
So kind of like us, like We the Plug, you know, when people see the logo, it's, you know, it's like, okay, I know who they are. I know what I'm going to get when I do business with them.
Yes. And trademark.
So we could trademark that.
Yes.
But it's because we vested that sweat equity that we put into our own company with doing the legwork and building out the brand.
Well, you can do that in the beginning. So you can trademark something, you can trademark whatever you're going to mark in the beginning of before you've built up the goodwill. But the point of it is to identify a source. So when a client or a potential client comes to me and they say, I want to trademark, I've had some randoms. I want to trademark this something, this whatever it is.
A shower cap.
This shower cap. And I'm like, trademark like their name. Okay, I want to trademark my name. Okay, so how are you going to use that? Well, I just want to trademark my name. Well, that's not going to work. Like, are you trademarking your name because when you want to want it to be associated with a celebrity, or you doing appearances, or you are you're like, there has to be something that you are seeking to educate the consumer about, so that when they see this, they automatically something comes into their mind every single time. It should be the same thing that comes into their mind every single time when they start to see this mark. So that's part of the trademark attorney process. But
so real quick, I have a question left field. For both the trademark and the copyright, there are national databases that you can check to where you're not like double dipping or anything like that, correct?
Yes. So for copyright, you can go to copyright.gov, and for trademarks, you can go to the USPTO.gov websites.
Perfect. Well, Maresa, I really appreciate you taking out the time this evening to, like I said, share all the content that you've shared tonight. Again, you can find Maresa on her website at talbertlawoffice.com. The link is in the chat box, so you can copy and paste it. She is also on the membership network for We the Plug as well. So you can connect with her on there, as well as look her up by her name on LinkedIn. And again, she is available for anyone who is looking to meet with her to get consultation to see if what you are needing she is able to provide. Do you have specific work hours that that you want to share with us as well? Perfect. And she just dropped it in there. So again, all her contact information is in there. Again, we appreciate you taking out the time and answering these questions. We look forward to taking what you have shared with us tonight and implementing it. The handouts that she has put together, you will find on the platform. The link is in the chat box. Go ahead and click on it and sign up for the membership network. It is in our beta launch phase, so there is no fee as of right now. We are just gathering data to help improve the services that We the Plug and programming that We the Plug is excited to put out there for our community. So again, thank you all for your time and patience and contribution. Louise, thank you for handling the background for us tonight. And of course, to our guests, thank you so kindly for your time. Blessed risings to you all. Stay safe. We're going to make it out of here on top. Right?
Amen.
Amen. All right. Have a good night.